I was recently reminded of a night many years ago now when one of our teenaged foster children came home from her job at the local pizza parlor and told us about a conversation she had had with one of her coworkers. Her coworker was a young woman who had recently immigrated to the United States. She wasn't a Christian. "Tell me," she asked our foster daughter, "what's this Easter all about? Why do you celebrate rabbits?" We all laughed when she told us the story, but as you look around at store windows, television ads, through the newspaper, and so on, does it come as any real surprise that such a person might think Easter is all about bunnies and eggs and all the candy you can eat? The truth, of course, is that celebrating rabbits actually predates Easter, at least in the West. In the days before the gospel reached northern Europe, the rabbit was the animal companion of Estra, the ancient Saxon goddess of spring. Eggs, too, were an ancient fertility symbol, a symbol of new life. And in that world, the spring equinox was marked by celebrations honoring Estra. Rabbits and eggs both played a role in the festivities. With the arrival of Christianity, those pagan rites of spring were baptized, so to speak, and came to symbolize the resurrection of Jesus and its promise of new life, its promise of hope in the world. In Germany, a character evolved known as the Osterhase, the Easter hare, the Easter bunny. The Easter hare laid eggs for good children, much like Santa brings gifts for good children. Don't ask me how a rabbit started laying eggs. That part I don't know. And he's a he, too. In anticipation of his arrival, children would build nests near their homes and lay out carrots to attract the rabbits. Come morning, the children would hunt for the eggs. Germans brought the tradition to Pennsylvania in the 18th century. In time, nests were replaced by baskets. And today, not just in this country, but other parts of the globe as well, looking for eggs left by a bunny is the highlight of the weekend. And so Easter is indeed, for many, not much more than celebrating rabbits. But I assume you are here instead of on the golf course or having brunch on the lanai because you want more out of this holiday than plastic eggs and chocolate bunnies. Not that there's anything wrong with the frivolity of the day. Some of my fondest childhood memories involve overflowing Easter baskets, black jelly beans — I'd trade the green and red ones for the black ones — and foil-wrapped eggs. And I love a good egg salad sandwich, good thing, because they were all on the menu for the week that followed. But let's be honest. If we're really looking for the hope of Easter, you probably won't find it in a basket filled with fake grass. Not that the Gospel of Mark is much help, at least not on the surface. The other Gospels all tell us wonderful, amazing stories of the resurrected Jesus, meeting his disciples in the upper room, on the road to Emmaus, even at the beach, a favorite for those of us on Sanibel. But Mark ends abruptly with this story of women going to the tomb and finding it empty. No Jesus, dead or alive. The original ending of Mark must have been so upsetting to some in the very early years of the church that we now have these two additional endings written later. Scholars widely agree, though, the original book of Mark ends with the story that I read earlier. The women fleeing from the tomb, for Jesus has gone ahead. Pastor Martha Spong tells about an Easter Sunday when she used this very lesson, and it was to be read by the lay liturgist. The bulletin noted the reading, Mark 16, 1 through 8, the place where the original Mark ends, the same place we ended. But the liturgist, thinking there must have been a mistake in the bulletin, read on. Now, after the day he rose, early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene. Spong went to the lectern and quietly told her, "We're stopping at verse 8 today." The liturgist stopped reading and whispered, "Oh, I thought it was a misprint. I thought it was 18. It was uncomfortable, writes Spong, but stopping at verse 8 leaves us all in an uncomfortable situation. We crave the resolutions the additional verses bring. But it ends at 8. There you have it. For Mark, the story ends with the empty tomb, and we are left looking for Easter, wondering just where has Jesus landed. But why are we looking, the angel asks, why are we looking for him in one particular place? No tomb, no grave can hold him back. He can't be contained. He can't be confined. Indeed, the risen one can be found anywhere and everywhere. Anywhere and everywhere, love is made manifest. And we can and will find Easter in places we might hardly imagine are possible. I found Easter this week at the Sanibel Police Department. I can be rather absent-minded at times. And Wednesday night when I left church to go home, I had my hands full of stuff to take with me. Apparently, when I went out to my car, I set my black leather portfolio on the roof of the car. And, well, you know where this is going. I was so preoccupied, I didn't even notice it when it flew off the car and onto Periwinkle Way at 5 o'clock at night. But apparently somebody else did, because he or she, I don't know which, stopped and gathered up all the papers that had been blown all over the place. When I got them back, some of them were marked by tire tracks. And some of them were important legal documents. They gathered them all up and took them to the police station, and the police took the time to track me down. I didn't even know it was missing yet. That evening, I got a call from the dispatcher. "Pastor Danner, somebody found your leather folder." Look, I know it's a little thing, though it did save me a whole lot of major inconvenience. But it was love made manifest. It was someone caring for a stranger, for somebody they didn't even know, to someone's, whoever picked it up, and the dispatcher who tracked me down. And Easter hope could be found in the Everglades this past week. No doubt you heard about the horrible accident last Sunday. A church van full of folks from the Independent Haitian Assembly of God Church in Fort Pierce. They were all returning home after celebrating Palm Sunday in Fort Myers. The driver must have been tired. It was late. He missed a stop sign at the intersection of routes 78 and 27 and went sailing across the highway and into a drainage canal on the side of the road. 8 of the passengers were killed. 10 others suffered injuries, including one man who, despite cuts, contusions, and a compound fracture in his leg, managed to crawl to the side of the highway. He tried to flag down help, but several cars just passed him by. It was the middle of the night. It was a remote location. Several just passed. But not Gary Lucky. He'd been fishing with his buddy Phil Frond, and when they saw the injured man by the roadside, they stopped. They called 911. They found some rope and helped some of the passengers escape from the van. Lucky's wife says he was sent by God. I know people in the van were praying people, she told a reporter, and I believe God heard their prayers and sent him. Lucky's not so sure himself. He sees it more of a right place, right thing sort of thing. But whatever the case, the love and concern he and his friend showed those in the accident, complete strangers, was certainly an Easter moment. At the police station, in the Everglades, and believe it or not, I also found Easter hope this week on Facebook. And I don't mean all those cutesy pictures of rabbits that have been all over Facebook this week. For days, the news has been full of stories about the air disaster in Switzerland. No doubt, many who had to travel the next day had second thoughts about boarding a plane. No doubt, that was especially true in Europe, especially if they were flying German wings. Britta English was one such soul. She was traveling from Hamburg to Cologne. Despite her hesitancy, she finally decided to fly. She needed to get to her destination. When she boarded the plane, she was greeted by the captain, as was every single passenger that got onto that plane. Personally greeted. Welcome aboard. And once everyone was in their seats, the captain stood in front of the cabin and spoke to them all. The crew and I understand your feelings today. We share them. We all have families. We all want to see them again. We were told we didn't have to fly today if we were too anxious or too frightened or too concerned. But we chose to be here. And we will do everything in our power to fly you to your destination. When he was finished, English wrote, it was totally silent. And then the whole plane applauded. The love and concern shown by that pilot for his passengers, you could say he was just doing his job, but he went above and beyond. No doubt about it in my mind. That was another Easter moment. Hope in the midst of fear. Life in the face of death. Mary Magdalene and the other women found an empty tomb. But clearly, they kept looking. And in time, they found the hope they needed, the hope they longed for, the hope that allowed them to go on. They found Easter. Not on the candy aisle at CVS or in a gaily colored basket. No, they found Easter in the love let loose in the world. A love that can be found most anywhere you are truly willing to look. They found Easter. And my friends, if you're willing to look, so can you. Amen. After I had finished writing my sermon, I had second thoughts about including that story about my leather folder. It seemed so trite compared to the story out of the Everglades or the story out of Switzerland. But then I got to thinking about it and kept it in. Because often in life, it's in those little things that we're most able to spot resurrection if we're willing to look for it. If we spend all our time just looking for the big things, we'll miss what's right up close, right in our faces. This week, this year, look for Easter, and you'll find it. It may be closer than you realize. It may be as close as the rooftop of your car. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Amen.